personally, I think stress is not good for learning a language because under heavy stress you cannot, really learn well because you're afraid of speaking or like express yourself. But in this case, I think like take the taxi drivers for example. Because of the Olympic Games, they have to like memorize the vocabulary and learn language patterns in a rather short period of time. So the stress sort of pushed them to learn English rather fast, and which they usually would not do if they are not forced to. So I think in this case, stress is helping them to learn English better. And as for the little girl who was sent to the English camp, um, I think that usually tests will give people a lot of stress, and people will be afraid or like shrink from learning something because of the tests. But because the girl is learning with a group of people, so this sort of mitigate the tension that the girl is receiving from the tests. So under modest stress, I think the girl still can improve her English very well. So whether stress has a good or negative effect on the learners, I think it depends on like whether it is moderate or is too heavy for a learner to shoulder.
And after watching this video, it reminds me of my English learning experience at school because some of the English learning methods in this video also could be seen in Taiwan school. For example, during English class, like in junior high or senior high school, the only chance we have to speak up is to read the dialogues from the textbook or to use the patterns to practice with our classmates. What's more, the teacher will access to memorize all of the vocabularies and the patterns on the textbook and test us repeatedly. However, I think there's a gap between the textbook and the reality. And that's the reason why we might feel panic while put into the real conversational situation. Just like the taxi driver who fails to communicate with the foreigners effectively.
And I'd like to focus on one of the learning methods mentioned in the video, role playing. And I think the effect the role playing bring to us is limited because even though we can learn the specific vocabulary we may we may we may learn the vocabulary we might use in the specific situation or the questions we might be asked by others. And by doing the role playing, we may get used to speaking in front of others, or the audience can give us the reflections by our performance. But if in the real condition, the conversation is not proceeding like what we planned, and it will be useless.
And I think in learning a language, self-reflecting is very important because you yourself know better than anyone else what difficulties you have to overcome and what changes in your learning method that needs to be improved. For example, in the movie, we see the taxi driver self-reflecting after having conversation with his passengers. Through self-reflecting, he finds out his faults and finds out the reason why the conversation wasn't good. And maybe it might be the lack of vocabulary or other problems. And after making corrections, he can make future conversations better.